Hello, I'm Novi Antan and welcome to ihomeschoolph YouTube podcast, where we'll talk about what really matters most in our homeschooling journey. You know, most folks assume homeschooling dads go off to work each day, which means the moms will stay home and teach their kids. For many families, that's certainly the case. But however, there's a new breed of homeschooling dad. That's why I'm so excited with this topic because they don't just want to be merely observers anymore. Hindi na sila satisfied though. They don't want to come home from work and ask, ano bang nagawa na ni Pedro today? They want to be a part of that learning experience and learn it with them. These fathers are fostering a love of learning in their kids and rediscovering it for themselves. Just how involved are today's homeschooling dads in their kids' lives? To find out, meron po akong in-invite. Actually, this man, I think we have seen him grow. And I think nakilala namin siya ni Chinky more than 13 years, if I'm not mistaken. Correct na ako later. But he's an entrepreneur, author, and consultant. He's the chief people officer for Team Positive Incorporated, co-founder and chief strategist for Block 10 Strategy. He's also an author of books, Break Conquering Burnout with Sabbath Rest, Passion is Dead, Hustle Muscle, and Canvas Manuscript. He hosts the podcast Workaholic with Kiko Mabilog. So, let me introduce to you Patrick Mabilog. Kiko, maraming salamat for being
Ayun.
here. So,
Thank you,
tama
Miss
ba ako?
Novia.
13 years na?
Ay, hindi ko na rin maalala eh. Mukhang probably around that time. Yeah, most likely. Could be more actually.
Really?
More, I
Wow.
think. Yeah, parang 14 or 15 years na. Probably.
Wow, that's amazing. But thank you for the privilege of seeing you, how you have grown, no? And Chinky and I are so proud
Mm.
of you. But anyway, iba
Wow.
namang level ito, di ba? Siyempre
Yep.
ngayon, ngayon may asawa ka na, and then may anak ka na. So how old are your kids?
Our kids right now, we have an 8-year-old turning 9
Mhm.
very soon.
Wow.
Which scares me.
Oh!
Pero we also have a 2-year-old naman. Both of them are girls, si Alexa tsaka si Sam.
Oh. So, on that end, dadagdagan niyo pa ba? Sabi ka na.
Depende kay wifey eh. Parang ako gusto ko, of course, pero we'll see if God opens the door. Eh, alam mo naman, he works miracles. So tignan natin.
Yes. Well, alam mo, kasi bihira tong conversation na to. And I do believe, because our country is very matriarchal. Alam mo naman yun, di ba, Patrick?
Mm-hmm.
No?
Mm-hmm.
Laging sinasabi na, ay, homeschool si nanay ang magtuturo niyan. Pero today, that's why the topic for our podcast today is when dad becomes the homeschool teacher. And this pandemic has really changed us in leaps and bounds. And I do believe
Yeah.
you homeschool your child even before the pandemic, no?
Yes.
And it's just that, is that a decision that you have to make or dalawa talaga kayo ni wifey ang nag-homeschool? How is the setup?
Yeah, so right now actually yung setup, I'm actually the advisor for our eldest ngayon.
Mm.
Si wifey naman, si Ses is the principal. So she's the boss.
Ah!
No, actually right now the setup is we help each other naman. Most
Okay.
of the time kasi we're both working, we both run our business, Block 10 Creative Strategy, and we also both have day jobs as well. Uh, and then the ministry and so many other things, so parang naging tandem siya. On paper I am the advisor, pero it's a tag team eh, na if busy talaga sa isang araw, then maybe someone can chip in and help. Pero yeah, I think that's really the dynamic. We decided to do this, tama po, right before the pandemic hit. I think it was really out of a sense of when we were looking at our schedule and comparing, the stories we have heard from our friends. Kasi many of our friends and many of our mentors then here in Bacolod City, that's where we're based, also homeschool their children. And then we were looking at that and looking at our schedule that we were in regular school. We saw that in some way or another, we could have saved a lot of time if we made the shift. Kasi during that time, I think it was also because of the season we were in. We had we had a relatively newborn. At the same time, we had just transferred to an Bacolod City for ministry. And then we had no house help. It was just us doing everything from dishes to cooking to laundry. And then, of course, you have to add on top of that, bringing the kids to school. And then we had a newborn. We were both up until 3 a.m. Tapos kailangan 6 a.m. We have to wake up already because we have to get ready to bring Alexa, yung eldest namin, to school. And when we just looked at it, we said, it actually makes more sense if we homeschool. So it actually stemmed out of that. It was really a practicality thing at the beginning. And then later on, it grew so much more to so much more than that. We started to realize na we had more time, not just, to spend as a family, but even Alexa, our eldest, all of a sudden she had time to pursue other interests. Kasi dati, her time was, she would spend practically from 7 to 5 in school. And I'm sure that works for some people. And after that, we would come home, get ready for dinner, 7:30. After dinner, maglinis kami. And then, homework naman. She'd finish by 8:30 and 9 o'clock, she's already in bed. So she didn't really have time anymore for hobby. Siguro, weekends, ganun. Pero when we shifted to homeschool, all of a sudden, she had like hours in say usually we finish about 2 p.m. eh. So all of a sudden she had all of this free time. And of course at the beginning it was hard because idle time, syempre cellphone bigla, and then all of that. But when we started being more deliberate about it, she started to pursue other things. She started to pursue music. She started to get into a lot of arts. She got into more active things kasi we have a swimming pool din in our subdivision. So she started to swim and learn how to swim. Mas magaling nga siya mag-swim sa akin eh. So I told her na if ever we get into an accident when we go island hopping, you'll save daddy. So parang ganun. So
Oo
yun,
naman.
that's our story.
Grabe talaga, you explaining that you are really involved, no? So, mga viewers and listeners, so I'm so excited lang with this following questions that I'm gonna ask you. Siyempre, iba mag-isip ang babae, especially, iba rin mag-isip ang babae on how to execute all of this, rhythm of homeschooling. So, in a nutshell, can you give me like, may nasabi ka na mga rhythm na of routines of what is your daughter is doing, but how do you do it? Like specifically as a dad, siyempre nag-work ka. Nag-work din si Ces,
Yeah.
diba?
Yes,
so how do you
tama po.
execute that? How do you execute that? Siyempre, in a perspective of a mom, iba kasi yun eh, di ba? Iba yung execution. Pero paano sa tatay to?
Well, I guess for me it was a bit tricky in the beginning kasi we tried to stick to the book, which is to start at 9 a.m. Diba? So and then but when we were doing that, we started to see na wait a minute, we can't be so by the book kasi 9 a.m. basically that's practically the time that you start working, diba? So tumatawag na yung clients, you have to start talking to your staff already. So we played around with it, and then we decided baka sige, let's see if we can adjust. So we played around with the time. And so what we did is we asked si Alexa to start a bit early. So right now my day more or less starts at about 7:30, devotionals, breakfast with the family, and then around 8 to 8:30 she starts to prepare yung materials niya, and then I would give her instructions, just enough time for me to start preparing my day, my work day at around 8:45. And then 9 I'm already meeting people, I'm already what do you call this? I'm starting to converse already with clients and all of that. And from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, maganda kasi it's pretty much autopilot. So Alexa can actually run and learn on her own. And siguro every now and then she would come in and ask some questions. I'll probably get to that a bit later on. That was the hardest part. How do you balance yung nasa meeting ka, nasa Zoom meeting ka, and then kailangan ng tulong sa Pilipino, ganun. So, pero I think that was the part that took a while to get used to. And then usually around 1 to 2, that's the time that you check the work. That's the time that you review and then you give the tests and all of that. And then 2 to 4, she usually has a time for her to uh, basically learn life skills. And so that can change every now and then. Right now, she is starting to learn Canva. Yun yung parang that's
Galing.
her that's her life skill of choice. So we put Canva on her device, and then she started to learn how to lay out graphics. Ngayon nasa video editing stage na siya. So on my
Oo
birthday
naman,
this
magaling pa
year,
ata sa akin yan.
oh, actually mas magaling pa nga sa akin eh. When during my birthday, she made me a video. I was so impressed. Sabi ko, galing nito ah. Parang professional na. So usually around 4 o'clock she's done for the day. So they'll go out. Right now, because of the pandemics, they just stay in the subdivision. Minsan they go swimming, or they just go to the fish. There's like a small fish pond area here inside our subdivision. Then parang outdoor play every now and then. So that's pretty much the cycle of the day to day from, I would say, siguro Monday to Friday.
So, can you say that you are do you believe in routines or rhythm, or do you
Yes.
make your schedule in a daily basis, or are you a father na you make a schedule for the whole week?
I am very much a routine person. So my week essentially, siguro I start by planning first the work stuff. So I usually plot that out Sunday afternoon. So I have a fixed time talaga, about 5 to 5:30, where I plot out the schedule that I have for the next week. And then I build around that. So everything from the tests that si Alexa has to take, or if siguro we try to see already ahead of time what subjects she might have challenges with. And so I try to plot that in the calendar din na parang, okay, sige, Monday and Tuesday will be a bit busy for daddy, pero Wednesday and Thursday okay tayo. So the subjects that you're having a hard time with, we can sit down, we can spend more time focused on that. So we try to schedule it on a weekly basis, and then try to put as much foresight. A lot of that is templated already. So minsan when I'm plotting my calendar on Sunday night, a lot of the things that I put there, they're already expected. Kasi yung meetings, like yung weekly meetings namin with Chinky and with the staff, we already have a schedule for that na paulit-ulit na. Monday, Friday, and then every the middle we have set time around 1 to 3 o'clock. I open up my schedules to meet with staff. So ganon. So we try to template it, but at the same time minsan meron ding mga urgents eh. So what do you do with that? So what I've been trying to do recently is I try to put a little bit of allowance in the morning and afternoon. Siguro 30 minutes to an hour allowance. As much as possible, I don't schedule meetings 11 a.m. to 12, and then 4 to siguro 1 to 2. So right before and after lunch, I don't put meetings so that you can have breathing room, so that when the urgent things come in, you don't have to panic, you don't have to cram, you don't have to multitask, which I definitely cannot do. I think that's one thing, Miss Novi, that's really hard for dads. Kasi with moms, kasi you can multitask. It's like it's natural with you. Minsan I really covet that because I am not a multitasker at all. Minsan when
But
I'm
you
working,
sounded like one.
do,
By
do I sound
testing.
like one? Nako, grabe.
Ang
I
dami
might
mong
have
ginagawa kasi it's not only under Team Positive, but you still have your own podcast and your own brand, and
yeah.
still you also help in the ministry. Grabe super dad.
Well, I try to I try my best not to overlap. So like for example, Tuesday afternoon, that is ministry time. And so my clients know that. And usually also, I mean, my family also knows that kasi Tuesday afternoons I am at church kasi Monday is the Sabbath of the pastors. So usually Tuesday yan yung we have the meetings, we have the discipleship coordination and all of that. I cannot overlap kasi if I overlap that, I really get lost. And I'm the kind of yung ano ko kasi yung the gifting that I have, I really like to focus, and a lot of my work is heads down work. And so I think that was really, I think, going to the 9 to 12 challenge that I had before, the time when I was working, when I was creating content, and then my daughter Alexa will walk in and ask for help. That was a challenge for me kasi it really really got me frantic at most times na in some way or another. I mean, to be completely honest, there will be times na parang you lose your temper kasi may ginagawa ka pa, and then pumapasok lang yung mga kids. So that was a big character building opportunity din for me, because it taught me the importance of priorities. And so I think like one thing I did, unknowingly, I started to realize I was starting to lock the door to my office already. And to me, it seemed like, I mean, of course, with dads, no, kasi there's this mindset na, but I have to work kasi I am the breadwinner, I bring home the bacon. And so it's just right for me to really focus on work. Pero when I really just, one time I was just sitting with the Lord, and I was just praying, and I was reading the word, and just this thought came to me that he told me, you know what, Kiko, I'll never close my door on you. And that really convicted me. It really cut me to the heart, because I realized if I really want to be a father after, the father's heart, this is the example that God has set for me, that I can come to him freely. And so who am I to close my door and say to my children that you have to set an appointment to ask for daddy's help? So ever since then, I said, you know what, Lord, I realized the error of my ways. I'm not saying, of course, that that's really just more of a personal conviction. And I said na I have to keep my door open for my children. Kasi what's the point of me closing the door to feed them if if I feed them like practically, but I'm not feeding their minds? And so that was a big eye opener for me. Na my primary job as a father, especially in our context right now with Ces and I, is really to be an educator to my children, to teach them values. And what kind of values am I teaching them if I close the door on them? And that was a really big eye opener for me. So I think that was one of the biggest uh like transformational moments for me personally in our homeschooling journey, trying to balance work and homeschool and life and all of that.
That's really a beautiful point, Patrick. I'm so refreshed actually, but that will also benefit the viewers because this pandemic was really in such a way, whether they like it or not, kailangan talaga nasa loob ng bahay.
Yes.
So, ikaw at least you were able to gauge na kumbaga nagawa mo na yung rhythm. How many years have you been homeschooling?
Almost 2 years. Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years. So, syempre, yung mga fathers now, na syempre 1 year pala yung pandemic, magto 2 years na ba tayo? Wala pa tayo, hindi pa tayo nagto 2 years sa pandemic, not yet. But still, maybe hindi pa rin nila nakikita yung groove doon or nararamdaman ko anong dapat. And the perception of, the fathers are not always at home, di ba? Hindi pa na, kumbaga, yung kulturang yun, hopefully magkaroon ng parang malaking, I do not know, parang picture na talagang fathers can really be involved. Why not?
Yes.
Diba?
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
not? And
I mean, I agree.
the factor of na para bang hindi, ikaw na lang yun kasi ako nagpo-provide eh. Alam mo yung laging ganong sense na ikaw na yun dyan para partner tayo. Pero definitely, when I said nga with my intro, you don't like to be an observer and you really want to be involved with your child. And that's what I admire from you. It's a courageous thing to do, no? But because maybe you did that because of your values and your belief and what you see maybe in the near future with your kids, no? And that is what you want to plant that seed. My question right now is, with the fathers right now, who's having a hard time to connect? Kasi syempre, ikaw, syempre, babae yung anak mo eh. Di ba? May iba siyang, yung parang preppy, alam mo yung gano'n, dolls, titi time, mga gano'n. So, paano mo yun nako-connect? Well, siguro the fathers would be like parang, hindi, pang ano lang yan, lalo na pag babae yung anak, di ba? So, how do you do that? How do you manage that? How do you connect with your child, especially with your daughter?
Yeah. That's actually a very good point. Siguro just a quick context. I've always prayed for daughters. I'd be happy
Aw.
with I'd be completely happy with sons. Pero in the back of my mind when we were praying for kids, I said I really want daughters. I want two princesses. Pero that also crossed my mind na parang, so how am I gonna play with them? How am I are we gonna have times to connect outside of school and all of that? Uh, Para siguro at the beginning it was a bit difficult kasi usually 'di ba, where's mommy? Kasi makeup time, 'di ba? So si mommy yung hinahanap, ganun. I think it was more so with our second. Yung second kasi na si Sam was very very attached to Ses. To a point talaga that there was really a time na parang for a few weeks or months na she would only stay with me for like 10-15 minutes and then go back to mommy. So so well, I wanted to make an effort na that siguro I understand na she's very clingy to mommy and all of that. With Alexa kasi it was completely the opposite. From the very start, she was very close to me. And with Sam, it was not like that. Pero I think it really took a deliberate effort. One thing that I tried to do was I really tried to understand my children. What are their interests? Kasi there are yes, of course, many of their interests are based on whether they're a boy or a girl, like to your point, the toys that they play and all of that. Pero meron namang mga games and all of that that can be unisex. I mean, it can be for boys and girls. Like right now si Alexa, she's enjoying badminton. So siguro twice or thrice a week, yun lang. I mean, siguro after when the sun is out already and when all the busyness of the day is gone, parang siguro late in the afternoon, 30 minutes go outside, play badminton. With Sam, for instance naman, she siguro like there's also, yung hide and seek, yung ganon. I mean, that doesn't really, I think I'm in some way or another, I was graced with a father who was very involved with us. Kasi we grew up in a household where there were three boys and then we had my sister who's the only girl. Pero in some way or another, I really saw that he would try to make an effort to play games na hindi maiiwan yung sister ko. Kasi I grew up with two of my cousins. I had two cousins really close to me, close in age. We were practically 1 to 2 years apart. And then my sister was 4 years apart. So it was hard to look for games where she could join. But my dad would really look for yung mga like the most basic and uh traditional games like yung tumbang preso, mga ganon, hide and seek, or sometimes we would just get your bikes and then bike around. That's also one thing that si Alexa is enjoying now. She likes to bike. Ako, I don't like to bike, pero I like to run. So when I run, she tags along on her bike. So being more, I think all of that really came out first from understanding what makes my daughter stick. Kasi hindi naman pwedeng force na, ito yung gawin natin para mag-bond naman tayo. Pero what if hindi niya gifting, or if she's not interested in it? So she will feel forced. It will be a chore to her. It will not be playtime. It will be kasi sinabi ni daddy para may quality time. So I think it for the fathers who are listening to this, it really pays to understand your children, to listen to them, to ask them, what do you like? Try to observe them. What kind of books are they reading? What kind of subjects do they like to talk about in the lunch? I mean, sometimes even just in the lunch table, it comes out. She starts to talk about, oh, you know what, Daddy, I saw yung neighbor, yung mga playmates ko, they have these bikes. They're going around in the afternoons. So that was a cue for me. Let's get her a bike and I'll teach her how to ride a bike. So really listen to your children.
Ang galing nun. Kasi nung pinakikinggan kita, it's like your goal is to meet where your child is. There's no agenda, there's no this is what we need to do dahil alam mo yon. Kumbaga, the goal is to really be able to find what is in the heart of your child, and that's the beauty of
Yeah.
it. Ang ano ko lang, I do believe the way you were raised up by your dad is also the way you wanted in a glimpse, no? That is
Yeah.
what kind of family you wanted as well. And if I'm gonna ask you, no, so to coincide with that experience with your dad, what are the things that you have seen from your dad that you really want to inject it into your family?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Definitely, I wanted to inject the sports mindedness, but I am not sports minded. Yung dad ko kasi, he was a football player when he was in school. And then my mom was a volleyball player. I did not get any of those gifts. I am so bad at sports. But I think one thing, of course, my dad, of course, Miss Tovi, you know, my parents. My dad is a pastor, and he also owns a school as well. Uh, right from the beginning, he was very active. He would build the ministry around time with us. And so that was a very big influence for me. Kasi I started to see na, I think my dad understood work-life integration from the beginning. Work-life integration basically is you take your career, you take your family life, you merge it together. And it's really possible. And I'm sure that siguro for me right now, I'm just blessed kasi I work from home. And so that's not really hard for me. But I think when I mentor, you know, fathers as well who, you know, who have, you know, day jobs, office jobs, and they come to me and say, how do I do that? Because I'm not in the house as many times as you are. But you know, I make them realize, you know what, when I'm at home and I'm working from home, I am working at home. And again, to the point that I made earlier, I'm not a multitasker. When I'm working, I can't spend time with my kids because I don't want to give them a half-hearted time with me na parang just to make it an excuse na I'm spending time with you pero nasa harap pala ako ng laptop or may ginagawa pala ako sa phone ko. So it's not. I think of course it's harder. Is it harder? Definitely yes. I'm sure that or more so with, you know, the metro area and the traffic and all of that. But it's not, again, it's not just about the quantity of time. Sometimes it's what matters more is the quality of time. There were really seasons with my parents that they were really busy. I think siguro I reference back to my late elementary and high school and early high school years when they were building the school and then doing ministry at the same time. They were super busy. We would leave at 7 in the morning kasi they have to open the school and all of that, bring us to school. And then we would go until like evening, like 7, 8 o'clock. Minsan, we would go home at like past 10 o'clock kasi may mga events pa sa church. You'll spend time with people in the church and they'll go for counseling and all of that. But it was a deliberate effort. I think what I saw with my dad was intentionality. And that's something that I carried on. And siguro there just one more story I'll share with that. Kasi my dad and I, one of our interactions, one of our favorite interactions is when we throw books at each other, recommend books. And then he recommended a book to me about balance. That was the time I was writing my first book, Break Conquering Burnout with Sabbath Rest. So I needed to read a lot because I am not an expert at rest. So I needed to read a lot of books. And when I was reading that book basically, there was a portion that said, you have to be intentional about family time and, you know, time with non-work related time. And so there was the author. I won't mention the author because he actually got into a scandal recently. But the principles are still really good. I'll just say it na lang. It was Bill Hybels, and he got into a scandal. But the principle was really so strong, and it still impacted me to this day. Bill Hybels was sharing this story where when the height of the ministry, he made one simple practical move, and that was to intentionally block off 3 schedules in his week that would be unimpeded, no ministry, no work, no phone calls. It's just for family. And I saw that and I saw so much wisdom in that because I realized it's very true. Kasi if you're not intentional, if you don't put things in your calendar, you will forget it. Yung mga work-related nga, nakakalimutan how much more yung non-work-related minsan. Especially when you're so frantic. I mean, with the pandemic and all of this, everyone's so busy. It has to go on your schedule. Kasi if it's not on your schedule, most likely it won't happen. And so that day, I made a decision. I said, Wednesday night, 6 to 8 p.m., Friday and Saturday night, 6 to 8 p.m., no work. No work. And I think that also came from, kasi it was my dad who shared that bit to me. And when he shared that bit to me, I realized, so that's what you were doing all this time. Kasi when I look back, oh nga, no, Friday nights, we would really go out. Even if you don't really, I mean, kasi he was not very verbal about it. Na ito yung Friday night, Saturday night sa inyo to. He didn't say that to us. But when I look back, I said, that really makes sense because he made time. He made time for us. And that really impacted me. And it's really, it's really carried on as a habit until this day.
Wow. Ang galing, no? It's not, siguro the word, not only intentional, but your dad is deliberate.
Very,
No?
very.
Very deliberate, no? Kakatuwa naman yun. That's why now with your own family, no? You're also deliberate and intentional with your kids.
Yeah.
And I know, ang dami mo nasabi, pero ayoko kasi siyempre, yung time natin, hindi masyadong, kung pwede na tayo magkwentuhan maghapon, pwede, no? But, siyempre, yung mga listeners din natin and viewers is curious. So, you're talking about your kids, but how is it as a husband? Paano mo na ma-manage yun with sis? Di ba? Sa
Yeah.
dami ng minention ko na ginagawa mo. And that's part of
Mm.
your balancing act. Siyempre, di ba tayo, yun yung role modeling na kailangan makita ng ating mga anak eh. Kayo muna first, no? Before we'll be able to impart that love to our kids. So how do you do that?
Yeah, siguro on the marriage side, that was actually the most badly hit during the pandemic for us. On the business side, we were doing really well because our business, Block 10, we help businesses shift to online. And so you can imagine, sobrang laki ng demand talaga ng services namin. We were turning down clients and the clients were saying, you have to give us a chance because if you don't help us, we will close down our business. And so that sense of responsibility na kailangan natin tulungan to. Pero it also came to a point that, I mean, I don't regret it. I'm so grateful that we had that opportunity. Pero I think if there's one thing that I would have done better is I would have been more deliberate about time with our marriage. And I think that also took a hit because during the pandemic, yung first lockdown talaga, we lost our helper. We had a good helper, super, I mean, our life was getting back on track in a sense. Hindi na yung sink namin all of a sudden had no more dishes. Our sanity was getting a bit better already. And then during the lockdown, the helper said, I have to go home kasi yung mga anak ko. So we understood. We said, please do. I mean, that's your priority. But we were stuck in a house with two children. One Sam was our youngest was a toddler during that time. Formative years, medyo demanding minsan kasi she wasn't going out, so she felt so and also the same with the ate kasi yung tatlong ladies dito sa bahay, my two daughters and my wife, they're extroverts kasi. They have to go out. When I heard lockdown, parang na-excite ako. Yes, I have a reason to stay home the whole day. Pero when that happened and we got so busy, definitely the time for marriage and time for cultivating the marriage took a hit. And of course, you can't go on date nights anymore. So even when you're at home and I mean, you say na, sige, dinner tayo, let's have a special dinner. Pero the kids are there, so you're kind of still, divided. To be honest, after that, we decided we have to go through marriage counseling. Not because of anything, but we just wanted to be more preventive than corrective. We said, let's use this time to go through, to have an outside perspective and help us work through some challenges. When we decided to do that, it was the best decision we ever made. It provided so much clarity. And siguro I'll just share a few, just siguro one or two. Number one is we really clarified on our values. We sat down and we said, alam mo, we do this for companies. We help them clarify their values. Pero tayo as a family, we don't have values. And of course, that's because most of the time we think of, mission, vision, values as a corporate thing. And so we decide during the counseling, we said, we have to have the same. Kasi if we're not clear about our values, we'll just keep saying yes to the wrong things. And of course, when you say yes to the wrong things, then you're not in line with what God wants you to do. And so, dami mo nang ginagawa. And I think that kind of touches on your point, Miss Novi, kanina na, how can you do so many things when without losing your sanity? At the end of the day, I realize that I'm still just doing one thing. And it goes back to our mission statement. Our mission statement essentially is we want to help people escape burnout and experience growth. And it applies in the workplace, it applies in the ministry, it applies with us personally. It made us realize this is the calling that we have from the Lord. And so it brought so much clarity because we got to rally together on it. So all of a sudden, everything that Cess and I did, we did it together. Kasi it was a mission that we could get behind. Nasabi namin, we are both excited about this. And it actually makes not just the people around us better, it makes the two of us better. The other thing that we decided is we started to talk about boundaries. Very clear boundaries. And we actually have a checklist of all the boundaries from work to ministry and all of that. We said, sulat natin para we don't lose time, debating about the small things like up to what time do we do ministry work? I mean, until what time do we take meetings? What days can we block? What are the words that we should avoid when we're, discussing finances and all of this? And so when we created those boundaries, it helped us save a lot of time and a lot of energy. And so we started to reinvest it. We reinvested it with the children. We reinvested it with each other. We started to grow the business because when you're clear about what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do, it really helps a lot. I mean, it sometimes it can sound very simple. I mean, does it really, I mean, you tell me that if I write down my boundaries, if you have a list that you can look at, that it will make all the difference? Yes. Because now there's no more, di ba ito yung pinag-usapan natin? Hindi, ito yun. So, I mean, that in a sense, you lose so much energy already arguing about it. Versus na, dali lang, 10 p.m. dapat wala nang ministry ng mga related na chats with people in the church. O nga pala, pinag-usapan natin yan, nandito yun sa list natin. So, conversation done. So, it really helped us in our marriage when we did that.
Galing. I just want to emphasize, regarding you taking that marriage counseling. I want to emphasize na people have that kind of, mindset na pag nagka-counseling ka, may problema ka na. Actually, it's not that. It's like when you're maintaining a car, hindi mo naman iniisip na kailangan masira muna siya ng todo bago mo siya pagawa, di ba?
Correct.
So you really have to maintain it every day, especially with marriage and with all our relationship. But then again, we have talked about you being a dad and as a husband. Pero kamusta ka na, Patrick? Siyempre, on your end, as an individual, how do you be able to, kasi kanina you were talking about your book and you don't know how to rest. How do you find time to be rested so that you can be able, that input, so that you can be able to have a good output to your relationship, to life itself, to your work, everything. So how do you do that as an individual? Because, siyempre, bago ka naman naging tatay at may asawa, individual ka muna. So how do you do that?
Yeah. That's a good question. I ask myself that question every day. No, well, to be honest, I mean, I have, Team Positive. I work with Chinky. I have a business. I have a podcast. Doing the ministry. I do speaking engagements. I write books. I homeschool my children. Obviously, people look at me and say, ang dami mong ginagawa, nagre-rest ka pa ba? Yung sinasabi ko lang, I'll rest when I'm retired. No. One principle that I taught in my book, Break, Conquering Burnout with Sabbath Rest, is that rest is not just a day. It's not just a time na parang kailangan Saturday ba, kailangan Sunday. It's really more of a mindset. And why that's important is because, like siguro take for example, frontliner parents, doctors, nurses, emergency responders. They don't really have a rest day per se kasi they're on call. And so when I was talking to one mentor, when I was writing the book, he made me realize that how do you contextualize rest for these people? And I realized that in some way or another, it also applies to business owners. Kasi yung business owners naman, they don't have fixed na office hours. You're no, whenever the business needs you, you have to be there. You can't tell your business, "Oh sige, wag kang munang magka-problema kasi rest day ko ngayon." You don't do that. But I realized that it's more important to see rest as a mindset. Because number one, you can have rest even when you're not on your rest day. And what do I mean by that? I mean, to be honest, let's just say for example that you have, on the weekdays, Monday to Friday, talking to the employees. 9 to 5, you're at work. Without the pandemic, for example, you add another 1 or 2 hours for travel, hopefully not more. If the travel, there's actually another point there to be made. Na yung travel na yun, I like what si Bishop Jure Moore actually said one time, that the times in traffic, he maximizes it because all he does is just he listens to the Lord, he prays, he speaks in tongues and all of that, because that's his rest. I mean, he takes the time to do that. And I think si Pastor Joseph Bonifacio also shared something like that before. That was an eye opener for me kasi it made you realize that, are you looking for those times? Like for me personally, I realized as simple as a lunch break, keeping that sacred was rest. Kasi minsan yung tendency ko din, right after lunch, go back to the office, go back to work para mahabol yung lahat na kailangan gawin. But being deliberate about that. Also, being deliberate about, times in the evenings where it's time for the family. To be honest, my time for the family starts at 8 o'clock, which it's 8:43 right now. But that goes to my next point. You just have to be flexible. If you have to work tonight, for example, baka you can take some time off in the morning. Extend your breakfast with your family. It's more of a mindset kasi. And to be honest, at the end of the day, I think this is the most important thing. It's realizing that rest is not just having one whole day na nagna-Netflix ka lang. Kasi you can come out of that and still feel exhausted. Especially kapag nag-binge watch ka dyan tapos 3 hours lang yung tulog mo. Rest is not just sitting down in a room the whole day na wala kang ginagawa. Rest is still doing something. But it's doing something that energizes you. Diba? There's a very, very big difference. Kasi work is you give. You give, diba? You give to your boss, you give to your clients, you give to the ministry, you give to the church. Yung rest naman is you receive. You receive. And so you have to be deliberate about receiving. So like for I think one practical example there is, do you have something that's not work related? Yung hobby kung baga, an avocation, walang pera na involved, and to me honestly, that's podcasting. Podcasting is like an avocation for me now. It's a way for me to receive. Kasi when I'm doing podcast interviews, I am listening to people and their wisdom, and I learn and I enjoy that. Yung ministry, when I preach on a Sunday, I don't consider that work because I don't get paid to do that. It's a volunteer thing. But it's rest because I as I preach the word, I mean the Bible tells us, he who refreshes others will also be refreshed. And most importantly, do you spend time with the Lord? And in that sense, I have to be very strict about that to myself. Yung sacred na 30 minutes to an hour in the morning where you're just with the Lord, praying, listening to him, reading his word, that I think that will pay much more than 2 weeks leave, paid leave. I mean, that will energize you more than anything when you spend time with God and you just listen to the Father's heart, and as he speaks to you, and let the Holy Spirit bring you energy. And just like Jesus said, just come to me, all who are burdened and weary, and I will give you rest. I think that's the foundation of rest. When we come to the Lord and say, Lord, I need your help. Hindi ko na kaya yung workload, hindi ko na kaya itong homeschool na to, kahit yung ako mismo hindi ko alam yung mga answers sa aral panlipunan, yung mga ganun. Lord, please give me wisdom in this sense. And when you come to the Lord with that vulnerability, you realize that all this time there was a God that was willing to energize you from the beginning, so that you could continue to do the things that you're called to do, whether in the workplace or at home.
Wow. That's really beautiful. Thank you for that, Patrick. Alam mo, tatawa ako kasi habang kinukwento mo yung podcast, pareho tayo eh.
Oo,
I
'di ba?
love doing podcasts. I don't like to do the YouTube or the live thing because no, I do not know. Maybe because one of my strength is to listen. I love listening to people and learn from them. And not only that, totoo yun eh. It also gives you rest. Not only the mindset, thank you for including that, but rest should be a lifestyle.
Yes.
No, it should be a lifestyle. And definitely rest also means trusting. Where
Mhm.
do you trust? Where does your trust come from? I emphasize that because as an individual, for you to be able to get the role as a father, that would magnify it because it will magnify with all your relationship. And not only that, that is the identity that
Mhm.
you have to discover within yourself so that you'll be motivated to be able to do what you're called to do. That's why this is my last question to you. Even though na ang dami ko pang gustong i-ask na question, with all the fathers who are, watching and listening with us right now, what can you say with them that they're so scared of this responsibility of being a father, especially being a provider? And with this, no, definitely, they think they can have this because they're compartmentalizing, para bang being involved in the education of the child, ito lang dapat yung gamin. How will you encourage them to not be scared and be involved? And they can really be involved on that level. So, yan, Patrick.
Everything still goes back to family, eh. The reason why you work so hard because you want to provide for your family. The reason why you build your careers because you want to give your children and your family a good life. Pero in some way or another, we realize that there's this trap there that we make the means the end. And so what I mean when I say that is minsan we're so engrossed in our careers, we're so engrossed in work that we forget na yung the job that I have. Yes, it's to serve other people, but in some way or another, it still goes back to family. And so if I neglect my family for the sake of career success, I've missed the point. Kasi what kind of a dad would I be if I built up $1 million industry or $1 million empire, or if I build up a lot of savings, a lot of retirement money, and then I give it to my kids and I didn't teach them how to handle money? Nako, I mean, it will just destroy their life. And I'm sure that we a lot of a lot of stories come into mind when we say that. Now I've seen that. I mean, businessmen parents who were so caught up with, I want to save, I want to build this business para when I pass it on to my kids, they live a comfortable life. Pero when they give it to their kids, they were not prepared kasi they were not part of the educational process, and they just squandered the wealth. That's my biggest, I think, I don't want to call it a fear, but that's the biggest warning for me, that I can give my children all the money in the world, all the assets in the world. I can build a business for them and tell them, just take over. Kayo na bahala. I mean, I'll just tell Alexa, yung mga Canva na ginagawa ko, you take over my clients. I can do that. But if I don't teach her honesty and integrity, she lose the clients. If I don't teach her, purpose and how to walk in wisdom and how to fear the Lord, then she will just, you know, go away from the path that God has given her. And this is just one thing that I want to tell the fathers here. Yes, getting involved in the education with the Filipino, in the English, in the MAPE, and all of that, that's important, yes. But more important than that is the values building. And you don't have to do that through homeschool. Whether you're homeschooling or you're traditional schooling, you have to do it. And even before, I mean, when we were in traditional school, I did not start values education with my children when I did homeschool. Even while we were in traditional school, again, because this is what I saw with my dad, he instilled knowledge. And minsan, it's as simple as, diba? I mean, like for me, when I was growing up, it was Bernstein Bears, diba? Yung mga stories. I don't know if alam mo yun,
Oh,
Miss
I
No,
love that. Nag-ipon ako niyan,
diba?
Bernstein.
So, diba, honesty, teaching them courtesy, no tantrums, mga ganon. I mean, that's values education. That is super. I mean, the reason why it's called values is because it's valuable, and it cannot come from anywhere else. Your teachers can teach that. Don't get me wrong. Sunday school teachers can teach that. Pastors can teach that. But there's a mantle of leadership upon, especially fathers, to teach that, because it has to start with us. Because if we outsource that to someone, it will not be as powerful. And I realize this because I'm in ministry. I can I can teach, the word of God to, next generation leaders. But if I don't partner with their parents, it's going to be so hard. It's going to be so hard. But when I partner with the parents, it's so much more easier. I mean, it's easier at every single level. And as fathers who are listening to this, you can outsource anything that you want. You can outsource the you can outsource the English, the word building, the spelling, and all of that. If you want to get a tutor, that's completely fine. But do not outsource values building. It has to come from you. It has to come from you. And so I hope that you realize that, because you can give your children all of the toys, you can buy them all of the gadgets, you can give them all of the riches of the world. But if we don't instill values in them, we won't see. But again, and I guess I want to end with the positive note. But if you do, you're gonna build a generation after generation of people who love the Lord and who pursue the calling that He has for them. That's the simple thing that I have received from my family, from my great grandfather to my grandfather to now my dad. And hopefully I play my cards right and I continue in this path. My goal is that I will continue that line of people who love the Lord. That just as the people before me in our family really wanted to build Christian homes, that I can do the same and I can teach my children to do the same. And for me, that's the biggest earthly na accomplishment that I'll probably be able to do here.
Wow. Naku, mga fathers, I know you really encourage, with Patrick's word. Thank you, because definitely that we can see that you are walking, what you are talking. Thank you for sharing your life, Patrick. Pero habang nagsasalita, parang na-prep lang ako ni God na kailangan tanungin ko to eh. What do you advise naman the wife? Siyempre, with all the busyness and sometimes, di ba? Ano lang yung pwede mo ma-advise sa ating mga wifey there na nakikinig sa atin at nanonood? Kung paano i-manage sa kanilang husband so that they will not be hesitant to be involved.
Yeah. Wives, you have to realize that the husbands are the head, pero the wife is the neck. So if the wife turns, the husband still follows. Siguro before that, I just want to honor my wife. Of course, she says, no. She's also, of course, going to listen to this because she's so supportive. Everything I put out, she listens to it. So I just want to honor Sis for standing with me and not giving up on me and all of that. I think this would have been a great question for Sis to answer, because she emulates this so well for wives around us, and there are just women who just gravitate towards her because they also see it in her life. I think one thing that wives need to realize is just please realize this, that you are not the lesser partner in a marriage. You are equally as important. Yes, the husband is the head, but where would we be without the wives who manage the day to day? I mean, the reason why I do homeschool also is because Seth takes care of everything else. I only have 2 jobs. I only have to teach my daughter math, English, and all of that, and then make money. My wife has to do everything from groceries to laundry to also helping, the business and doing our finances and all. Nako, grabe. I mean, if I did that, I don't know. Siguro ako na yung magka-counseling, si Ses, hindi na kailangan. Pero wives, realize this. You are completely important. You are very important. And sometimes if your husbands don't say it, because again, sometimes husbands naman minsan, and again, siguro for the husbands, please, also you can also say this naman to your wives. But even if they don't say it, realize that your labor is not in vain. That the Lord sees it. I'm sure that your husband sees it as well, even if you won't admit it. Kahit hindi siya touchy-feely, he really appreciates it. But also, and also at the same time, realize that when you have a hard time, talk to your husband. Talk to your husband. I think that's also one thing that my wife, and really, sit down. Hindi yung kasi minsan yung wives, 'di ba, you have the spiritual gift to speak with your mouth closed. Yung ganon. Pero not really take time to, communicate to your husband. I need help. And that's what Ces did with the homeschooling. She said, I can't take care of this anymore. Can you take care of this? And I said, sure. thank you for letting me know that. So communicate as much as you can to your husbands.
Thank you. Naku, matutuwa ang mga wifey sa iyong advice. Maraming salamat, Patrick. Thank you so much for just gracing our show in iHomeschool PH, and definitely a lot of parents are gonna benefit to it. Maraming salamat.
Thank you din. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Lagi lang po nating tatandaan po, no? In homeschooling, relationship is more important than academics. Ako po si Novi Antan, your homeschool coach, and I homeschool. Bye!